She's walking through and she's like, so many men.
She managed to get 8 dates in 1 week.
Come on, though. She's Hilary Duff. ELIXIR was the New York Times bestseller. She was just like, what a bitch. And I was like, yes, Hilary. Hey, Team Duff, it's Whitt. Thanks so much for listening to Duff Enough, the ultimate Hilary Duff fan podcast. This show is a celebration of the life and career of actress, singer, mother, and all-around icon, Hilary Duff. And right now, I am joined by a mega Hilary fan and someone who works very hard to bring us all of the Hilary news. He's one of 3 people behind the Hilary News social media accounts. Josh LeClair, welcome to Duff Enough.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much for having me here.
Absolutely. So glad I could have you on. And you guys work so hard, as I was saying, and the fans, we definitely appreciate it. So thank you for all of the wonderful years of Hilary News.
Oh, thank you. It's the fans that keep it going, you know?
Yeah. And you are here for Beauty and the Briefcase, which I understand has a little bit of a history with the start of Hilary News. That was kind of the launching point.
Yes. That's the interesting thing. At first, we just started off to promote the movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we were like, let's go bigger with this and just make it all about Hilary, just like news, pictures, anything. So it was me and Avery from the start.
Yeah.
And then Lewis came on after that. Yeah.
It's been a journey. I think I came on actually, and then ELIXIR is another part of this episode that
Right.
we're going to be talking about at the end. But I came on, I feel like when ELIXIR was coming out, I remember starting to follow.
Yeah.
So it's been a long time.
It has been, yeah. I feel like we've become like very close with you, and you've been very close with the page, and we appreciate you always tweeting us and like retweeting us and just staying up to date with us.
Yeah. And y'all been so supportive of the pod. So it's been great.
Yes.
It's been great. And really, just before we jump into everything, tell me a little bit about your Hilary fandom. I know a lot of us have this similar experience of growing up and watching her as Lizzie, but I know you've definitely had, like a lot of us, a deep connection with her for a long time.
Yeah, I would definitely say it started when I was a lot younger, maybe like 12 or 13. I remember just one day flipping through the channels or whatever, and I saw Lizzie McGuire on. Well, I didn't know what it was at first, but I watched it and I liked it. And then after it ended, one of her music videos actually came on, and it was I Can't Wait. It was like, oh, wow, she can sing too, kind of thing. So that's kind of how it all started.
I know that you did that great interview with her, I remember, for Hilary News that one time.
Yes, that happened 2013. It was done at a Starbucks, which it was kind of hard sometimes with like everyone around, and it was like, oh, is anyone like going to come up and like interrupt us, you know?
Right.
But we made it work, and it was really fun.
It's a great interview, and I remember being so excited because this was right before she kind of got back into the studio and started working on music, or had just started, and you got to ask her a lot about that, which was great. Well, I have 3 questions I ask every guest. First question, what is your favorite Hilary Duff movie?
I have to say A Cinderella Story, for sure.
It's a classic. It's a classic.
Yeah, I love the cast. Like, I thought she did great in it, and definitely a classic.
Next question, what is your favorite Hilary Duff song?
I would say Stranger.
Mm.
The first time I listened to Dignity and I heard Stranger, I was like, this is really different.
Right.
And I just knew straight away that I wanted it to be a single.
And then what is your favorite episode of Lizzie McGuire?
Okay, this one I thought a lot about. And I think I would have to say those Freaky McGuires.
Freaky Friday-ish episode.
Yeah, where Matt and Lizzie switch bodies.
Yep.
And I thought she did really well as playing Matt.
She did. It's one of those two where a lot of the show is so rooted in reality, and this one was kind of like this fun, like silly fantasy episode. But
exactly. Yeah.
Great one. Great choices.
Sit back, relax, and enjoy our silver screen queen. It's time for Block Duffster.
We will jump into Beauty and the Briefcase now, and I've got some stats I'll talk about here for a second. So this movie premiered on April 18th, 2010. It's an ABC Family original movie back before Freeform was Freeform. I still think of Freeform as ABC Family sometimes, actually. But anyway,
you're right.
Based on a novel called Diary of a Working Girl. And I remember that the fans on Facebook actually got to vote. Well, originally I remember it being called The Business of Falling in Love.
Yes, I do remember that.
I think on ABC Family's Facebook page, I remember them doing this poll where you could vote on what to name this new movie. And they had options of like Business of Falling in Love, Beauty and the Briefcase, and something else. And I saw it and I was like, oh, well, it's already called The Business of Falling in Love. So why are they doing this voting thing?
Exactly.
But then it changed. It changed and became Beauty and the Briefcase, which I feel like is probably a more fun title.
It is,
anyway.
Definitely.
Some other things to note here. Hilary served as an executive producer on that. We love to see it. This was shot in New Orleans and NYC. Great ratings for the network, 2.4 million viewers. It was nominated for Family TV Movie at the People's Choice Awards. And then also there was a partnership with Cosmopolitan because they use Hilary's real cover in the movie. So pretty cool info there. And I remember when this premiered, it had been a while since we'd seen Hilary in more of a mainstream movie, I guess. I mean, it was a TV movie. She had done Gossip Girl the year before this. So it had been a minute. It had been a minute since we'd seen her in anything super mainstream. This was kind of during that indie movie era that she was doing.
I feel like it was something she did for the fans.
I think so too. Yeah. This movie had like a classic Hilary feel to it. You know, it kind of threw back to her rom-coms and that sort of thing.
Which was nice to see because like she had done these indie movies, but we had no idea when they were coming out.
Right. Yeah.
So this was a nice surprise.
Cast list here, we have Hilary as Lane Daniels. We have Michael McMillan as Tom, Matt Dallas as Seth, and a lot of people who watched ABC Family at that time already knew him from Kyle XY. We have Chris Carmack as Liam. He went on to have a big role on the TV show Nashville on ABC. Jamie Presley as Kate. And Jennifer Coolidge has a little cameo, I guess, in this movie as a character named Alicia. Cinderella Story reunion there.
Yes.
So watching this movie back, kind of my initial reaction here, and I don't know if you had the same, but this movie now is a decade old. And I was just thinking, this was way, way before Me Too. But I don't think this movie would get made this way or period now. I mean, it was very much kind of this film about, you know, a girl who goes to work in this business setting around all of these men. And she's just trying to get them to fall in love with her. And they're all kind of looking at her and checking her out and all this stuff. And I was like, this would not work today. And I don't think Hilary would do it.
No.
And I was also thinking about how this character felt kind of like a precursor to Kelsey, maybe a little more tame than Kelsey, not quite as messy, a little more ditzy than Kelsey from Younger, but definitely gave me Kelsey vibes.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely felt that as well.
And they totally, like, this was just a great movie to show off Hilary in a lot of great outfits. Okay, well, jumping in here, so the film is about a freelance writer who Hilary is playing named Lane, and she has this checklist when it comes to meeting guys, and she wants to make sure that they check off every single box, even though they're kind of impossible to achieve, so we think. But she wants to work for Cosmopolitan, and she wants to write for fashion. Kind of towards the beginning, we see Jennifer Coolidge. I believe she was interviewing Jennifer Coolidge for a story, or Jennifer Coolidge, the character that she's playing here. This was for like a different piece. This wasn't for the Cosmo piece. But anyway, that interview doesn't go great. And we see Lane kind of blurt out that she is jealous of Jennifer's boyfriend. And she like blurts that out, which I thought was so funny because in Lizzie McGuire, we're so used to seeing, you know, Lizzie say the exact opposite of what she's thinking inside her head. So Lane's roommate, Joanne, actually gets her a pitch meeting at Cosmo, which is exciting. And she goes to Cosmo. She has on this great red and blue square dress, which was super memorable. I had not watched this movie in a while, but some of the outfits really stood out to me. And that one was one I remembered pretty well. And do you want to talk about what happens when she first hits the crosswalk to head to Cosmo?
Oh, you mean like when she falls in the street?
Yes, which is just so great. I mean, we love a Hilary Pratt fall.
Because we know she's like known for those. That's from Lizzie McGuire.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I don't know if we've seen her like trip and fall like that in younger yet, but they need to make that happen.
They definitely need to put that in there.
I mean, Kelsey's not quite as clumsy, but we get her drunk enough and then it'll happen.
Yeah.
So at Cosmo, she meets Kate. And we see this little pitch meeting that doesn't go so well, and Kate passes on her. But then they start having this conversation about dateable guys. And at some point, it kind of turns into a convo about dating men in the workplace. And Lane is like, oh, there's a story here. So then there's this whole scheme that they come up with, and Lane does get an assignment. She's going to go undercover in the business world and date men in suits. And Kate says that Lane cannot date anyone else. And immediately it's like, well, okay, she's going to date someone else because we know this is not going to work out.
All right.
She goes in for a job interview, and I love this one line that she said something about, I've never understood resumes. They're just a contest to see who can lie better. And Lane does kind of lie. She says that she speaks 3 languages and some other stuff. She says that she knows how to use this software. And I think here I wrote down that Lane starts to look kind of dumb. I mean, at the beginning of the movie, I felt like she was kind of this go-getter and this smart, like, driven girl. And I think she is still that, but for whatever reason, she kind of turned into this ditzy character in this scene in particular.
Yeah, I definitely agree. They kind of made her out to be that typical dumb blonde.
Yeah, and I didn't really know how I felt about that. I wrote down Tansy for Tansy Marchetta.
Right.
I was like, kind of reminds me of Tansy.
I could see that. Mm-hmm.
But we got some great like comedy out of this. And I loved the interaction between Hilary and I guess the recruiter woman, or the woman who's kind of walking her through the interview and keeps laughing at her. And she does test on this software, which I thought this scene was great. But she's trying to get out of this test, and the other girl who's taking the test is not helping her. And she comes up with this idea to spill water on the power cords. And so she gets up, gets her a little cup of water, and then knocks it off. And she says, too bad about those lights. I was nailing that test. I don't know. I thought that scene was fun, even though I wasn't sure how I felt about the ditzy Lane all of a sudden.
Yeah, it was pretty comical, I'd say, for sure.
When she goes to the workplace, I just had such like cringe moments when I was seeing this, because she's walking through and she's like, so many men. And I'm just like, this is not how we view things these days.
Especially now. Yeah, these days. Definitely.
I don't know. It's just not a message that I think that we're sending in our entertainment anymore. And I don't think it's something that Hilary would want to send either. So,
right.
But yeah. So basically, she gets a job as an assistant at this investment company. Her boss is Tom. I made a note about the pink and orange outfit and like the gold chain necklace and the purple lip. That was also super memorable. Tom. We will talk about Tom now. So Tom is her boss, and he's kind of nerdy. He's not one of the guys that she's super drawn to, and he first talks about how he wears the same shirt. So Lane points out, like, aren't you wearing the same shirt you wore at the interview? And he says, oh, it's the same, but not the same. And so he's telling her that he has like 6 different, button-down shirts that he wears for every day of the week, or, and an extra one and whatnot. But it's kind of like this nice little character trait that we see in Tom, and we see how, this is not the guy that she's looking for that's going to be her boss. I thought it was cute how she got excited about her cubicle and her spinning chair. I feel like we've all been there when we get a new job, and we like the little things are so exciting.
Definitely.
But anyway, another line I wrote down, she says, I'm like Anne Hathaway in The Devil Wears Prada, but without the evil boss. The gestures that Tom gives her to communicate. I don't know at what point, but there is a part where he, twirls his finger to gesture her to do something, and she gets up and she spins around, like showing off her outfit. And I was like, oh no. Like, to me, that was the worst. Like, at that point, I was just like, no.
That was pretty cringy. Can we talk about the nickname he gave her?
Oh, yeah. Talk about it.
So Tom, her boss, gives her the nickname AbFab. And apparently it's a throwback to a comedy show from 1992.
I don't think in 2010 I would have gotten that reference.
No.
I did get that reference today just because I feel like at some point that show has come up in like a meme or something that I've seen on the internet. And it's almost like a Golden Girls-esque kind of show, but it's in terms of like popularity, I guess. But it's a British comedy series kind of about these women, and they're super fashionable. And so that's what he was referring to, saying like, you like fashion. And it seemed a little obscure to me, but maybe not. So, of course, she is also there undercover and trying to date all these men. And she meets Seth at the copy machine. Obviously, like, he is kind of the guy that we see and we're like, oh, this is it. Like, this is going to be the guy that she falls in love with. Like, he's McDreamy. Yeah. Like, that's what you're led to believe, I feel like, at first. And I kind of feel bad for him. I kind of wish that they would have had a little more of a dating storyline. But she meets Seth. And she does start going on dates. Like, the men just start coming to her and asking her out. And we get a montage. And we see that she's writing her article, like, on the job. She's even printing it out at the office, which I'm like, girl, this is not smart. But as she is turning in work to Kate at Cosmo, Kate is wanting her to, get Seth to ask her out because he hasn't yet. And I love how she does. Like, she goes to the office and he kind of is playing coy a little bit. He doesn't ask her, and then he does, and it's I thought that scene was cute.
Yeah.
He's kind of playing hard to get, I guess. Then there is Liam, which, okay, so Lane and Joanne are out for drinks at a restaurant, and Lane accidentally spills a drink on this guy, and he has a British accent, which at first I was like, wait, is this Australian? Is this British? What's going on here?
It definitely threw me off.
Yeah. And Chris Carmack, the actor here, was also a love interest for like one of Haley's Christmas movies on Lifetime.
Oh, was he?
Yeah, so it's like, okay, good for him. Lane is all about Liam as soon as she meets him, and he says he's a music producer, and he asks her out for dinner, but he is not a guy in a suit, basically. So conflict already. Another great comical scene, I thought, that had a great one-liner is when Lane is on a date with a guy at work, and she just, she's super bored with the conversation, and she's like, where's the craziest place you've ever had sex? And he says, well, one time in college, he was like, I did it on the floor of my apartment or something.
Yeah.
And of course, Lane is just like, okay, dude. But to get out of it, she's just like, you're too sexual for me. And then she gets up and leaves. So I thought that was great.
That was good. I like that part. Yeah. Can we talk about how she managed to get like 8 dates in 1 week?
I mean, come on, though. She's Hilary Duff.
I know she is Hilary Duff, but like it was her first week on the job. I guess it is New York City, but wouldn't it be a bit more difficult?
Yeah, but also they made every single other woman, which there were only a few other women at that workplace, but they dressed them in like, suits, and then here comes Hilary in like these dresses and just,
Right.
Yeah. I don't know if this is that significant, but there was a cute moment where Lane put up these beads in front of her office to like walk through. This is a fun little like girly character trait, and I love when Hilary's just super, quote unquote girly in general. So that was just a fun little thing to see. So there is one night where Lane has a date with Liam, and the waiter comes up and is kind of bragging on Liam, like he knows him, and he's like, oh, Liam has his own record label. And so Lane is very into Liam. She's distracted at work. She's distracted from her article. And it's kind of all falling apart, but Lane is not even realizing it yet. So at some point, Tom actually confronts Lane about lying on her resume, and he gives her a warning. And this is when Lane decides, okay, I'm like super in love with Liam. I'm going to change my story to be about falling in love with a guy when you least expect it, and I'm going to quit this job. So that's what she does. She leaves a letter, a resignation letter on Tom's desk. She goes to Cosmo with her new pitch, but Kate at Cosmo is like, no, like you're going to do this story that you talked about. You're falling in love with someone in the business world. So get back out there. So that's what she does, and she has to run and get the note back off Tom's desk, which the whole thing of like her running, like any kind of physical comedy that we can get from Hilary, I'm just like, yes. So even in that moment where she's like frantically running, it makes me think of like in The Perfect Man where she's running out to get those orchids, or just anything fun like that. Like I love when we can see Hilary.
I love those little moments.
Yeah. So anything like that. And by the way, Kate also tells her at this point that her Cosmo story is going to be a cover story. So this is a really big deal, and she needs to take it seriously. So she tries to, change her focus. She's going to break things off with Liam. But then he gives her this story about how he got his heart broken. And she's like, oh, well, I can't really break up with him now. So she comes up with this idea, date Liam, but pretend like it's Seth, because Kate wants her to date Seth. She's going to keep dating Liam, but she's going to write as if it's about Seth. There's another cringy scene. There's a business meeting in a boardroom, but Lane comes in and she's bending over and doing all this stuff, and the boss is getting distracted on the video chat. And again, I was like, oh, no. We're not doing this, but it happened anyway. Now, there is a cute scene when they're having a girls' night at Lane's apartment. They're doing face masks and all that. And they go down to a convenience store, and Lane still has her face mask on. And she runs into Tom, her boss. And it's kind of the first time where I feel like their relationship kind of starts to develop a little more. Lane's friend even says something about Tom being cute. And Lane is like, oh, because she can't even think of him that way, of course. But it was planting a little seed of what was to come. And things are also developing with Liam still. And there's another fun scene where Lane tells Liam about her checklist that we were talking about. And one of the things on her list was a fake public fight and then makeup sex. But I loved the fight. That was fun.
It was fun, yeah.
Yeah. So as we head to the end of the movie, we see that Tom accidentally picks up Lane's article off her printer, because, I said she had been printing the article and what she'd been working on off at work. Not smart, Lane. He reads everything. He even gets her folder off her desk, which I was like, that's a little invasive, but okay, Tom. So when Lane comes back in, he confronts her, and Seth also walks in at this moment, which was funny because she's written all this, crazy stuff about Seth when it's really Liam. But Tom is mad. He says everything is a lie. And Lane really sticks up for herself, and she argues that she became a great assistant, which she did. And then she's like, goodbye, Tom. To make matters worse, now that she thinks that she's gotten fired from her job, she goes out with her friend, Joanne. She had called Liam. He said he was in London dealing with an artist because, British accent, I guess. So then we got to talk about how things end with Liam, and they do not end well at all.
No.
And I think I saw this coming. I mean, it had to go sour somehow. But so they're at dinner, and she sees Liam as a waiter at this restaurant. And it's the same restaurant where they had their first date. Yeah, so Liam is a waiter, and then the guy that we saw as the waiter on Liam and Lane's date is now sitting at the table with another woman. So Lane figures out what's going on. She goes over to the table and really it's great. So she does a British accent just like Liam, and she basically tells this woman who's sitting there how the whole thing works and how they're tricking her and making her think that he's this music producer. He has this accent and super charming, and he's just trying to get women. So it was a great breakup scene, and it even ends with her and Joanne throwing water into Liam's face, which I love a good, throwing water in the face for a breakup moment. So wrapping things up at the end of the movie, because we got to have a happy ending here.
Of course.
So Tom calls and he's like, Lane, you're not fired. I need you to get over here with these visuals. We have this meeting. And so she goes to the meeting, even though she thought everyone was mad at her. And I liked the line where Tom was like, Lane, this isn't 7th grade. This is investment banking. Get over here. Be an adult right now. But Lane walks into the meeting. She has the posters. It's a great presentation. But the boss, he just says, hey, this is still too much money. We're going to have layoffs. And that's when Lane, stands up and is like, hey, if we do, if we make some eco-friendly changes around here and go green, we can start saving some money. And it's something that she and Tom have in common. And we didn't really talk about that, but going back to those beads, she and Tom had this conversation about how they're both kind of environmentally friendly kind of people. So Tom pitches this green initiative. The boss agrees and wants to see the plans. And so I guess happy ending, everyone's jobs are secure now. And to tie up the loose ends, and we do get a very, very happy ending, but Tom and Lane have a sweet moment as she's packing up to leave because she is quitting, and it's a nice little goodbye. And then she goes back to Cosmo and she turns in the article. And the article, though, it did not have a happy ending. And she was kind of disappointed in that because she thought that that was what Kate wanted. And she wound up telling the truth. And she says she's been walking around with the ghost of her magic man, but there's no such thing as perfection. And so she wants to, pursue real relationships from now on. So I thought that was great. Like, we had a great full circle moment. At the beginning of the movie, Lane is all about this checklist for her magic man. And then she learns, like, okay, that's not very realistic, and we're going to search for the real thing now. Kate calls Lane to come in to Cosmo, and Lane thinks she's getting fired because the article was not what she was supposed to do. And she's walking to Cosmo, and I loved how it was the exact opposite of what, the beginning of the movie, she was all excited about walking to Cosmo, and now she's like, oh, I hate this place and all that. When she goes to the office, Kate says the article is perfect, to Lane's surprise. It's going to be a cover story. And then she reveals Hilary's Cosmo cover. I think it was her 2008 cover.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, which would have been probably a year before they shot this. And so it was interesting because her hair was a little darker than what it is in this movie. But yay, her article worked out. And Kate tells her, though, that she wants an update on Lane and Tom. And Lane is like, what? And then they go down the checklist because Lane never did a checklist for Tom. And it turns out he doesn't meet anything on her checklist. And Kate is like, are you starting to see the pattern? And then Lane just realizes that Tom is her guy, which I think probably about halfway through the movie, when I first saw it, I realized, okay, that's where this is going.
You figured that out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like way before.
Yeah. And Lane, she runs back to the office, she crashes a board meeting, and she tells Tom that she's in love with him, which I was like, whoa, we went 0 to 100 really fast with that.
That seemed out of nowhere.
Yeah, I think it could have been more of like, you're my guy or something. But he says he loves her too. They kiss and he carries her out of the room, and her Cosmo story comes out. It's a big hit. We see everybody reading it, and then Tom's green initiative works. And the very end of the movie, we see them on a little date in a carriage, and they're still kind of their quirky selves, and sweet little ending. And just my overall thoughts, before we jumped in, I was talking about how cringy some things were that wouldn't work today, post Me Too and everything. But it was a fun little rom-com, and I'm glad that Hilary did this because it had just been, years since she'd done a more of a mainstream kind of movie. I guess Material Girls, 2006 would have been the last time. So 2006 to 2010, that's about 4 years. And yeah, it had just been a minute, and I just remember being very excited about this. And what about your overall thoughts?
Like you said, I like that it was something mainstream because we hadn't seen her in something like that for a while. But yeah, definitely it's a nice little rom-com, which she is good at, as we know. Yeah.
Even going past like the adult thing, we had seen her in so many high school characters and then some college characters, and then I would say this was the first time we had seen her kind of as an adult in a workplace setting too, in a film.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, like in a movie where she's like a working adult. So that's Beauty and the Briefcase. I don't think she's done another like TV movie or anything since then, so it'd be good to see one of those again.
Would you be into that?
Yeah. I'd be down for a freeform movie or something. I'd rather see something like on Netflix, but
yeah, definitely Netflix would be ideal.
Yep. Our Remember When topic today is the ELIXIR trilogy, and these books were a project that came out around the same time as Beauty and the Briefcase. So ELIXIR was released on October 12th, 2010, Devoted October 11th, 2011, and True April 13th, 2013. ELIXIR was the New York Times bestseller. This was a book that she co-authored. The whole series she co-authored with Elise Allen. It's a YA novel series with Simon & Schuster. And yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit about this. Honestly, it's been so long since I've read the books. I would have to go back and reread them to do that properly, and I just don't have the time right now.
Exactly.
But yeah, I mean, I'll talk a little bit about the plot. So it's about a character named Clea Raymond, who is a photojournalist, and she has these high-profile parents. I think her dad's like a humanitarian, and her mom was a politician.
Yep.
She has this mysterious man who appears in her photos, and it turns out to be like this lover from a previous life. And there's a lot about reincarnation, I remember. And there's a love triangle with Sage, who's the mystery man, and then Ben, who's kind of her best friend, Clea's best friend. And I remember being pretty excited about this project. Like when ELIXIR first came out, it felt like a good fit. It felt like something different for her. And I don't know, what do you remember from that time? Was that an exciting era for you? Because the promo was everything.
I think I more enjoyed the promo.
I know.
Yeah, they were good books from what I remember.
Yeah. When I sent you notes about this episode, I was like, I do not remember these books. I remember the first one more so than the second and third. But I do remember that I was in a modern literature class in high school the year that this came out. And yeah, so this is what went down because we had to do like a presentation about our favorite novel, which, okay, ELIXIR is not my like favorite novel of all time.
Right.
I mean, it's proud of Hilary, of course.
Yes.
But because I am the Hilary Duff obsessed person that I am, of course I did a presentation on ELIXIR because I wanted more people to support the book.
Exactly.
I wish I could find that paper because, I mean, I like really made ELIXIR sound like the best thing ever. And got up in front of the class and like did a whole presentation about it. So that happened. I want to talk about the covers for these books because they are gorgeous.
They're amazing.
Like, yeah, the original cover for ELIXIR is like that purple cover with, it has a flower. I think it's an orchid, but it's the ELIXIR is basically, I think, what it is. Man, that was such a beautiful cover, and she like looked so good in all her pictures holding it. I mean, man. And she went all out.
She did go all out, and you could tell she was like really excited because she had never done anything like this before, right?
No.
What I love too, she always credited Elise Allen as her ghostwriter.
Right.
She didn't take all the credit for it, which I know people got after her when like this first came out that she was going to do it. They were like, oh, she's just going to make it seem like she wrote it all herself, which wasn't the case, obviously.
Oh, no. I mean, even in her interviews, I remember her being like, well, I'm a third grade dropout, which she always says.
She always says.
So I do appreciate that, she gave Elise the credit there. And I believe that Hilary definitely took part in the planning of the books and the idea. And I'm sure that Elise did a lot of the heavy work, but, I'm sure that Hilary was involved enough to where, it wasn't something that she was going to put her name on that she just had nothing to do with,
definitely. That's just not who she is, right?
Right, yeah.
But I know, like, a lot of the ideas and, like, the concepts and, like, just the descriptions of, like, the characters came directly from her.
And did you always picture Clea as Hilary? Because I did.
I did, definitely.
Even though in all the interviews, she would be like, it's not me,
Yeah. But I think most people did, I'm sure.
So just talking about her press tour and the book tours, I mean, she went to every single like talk show, it seems like. I mean, all of them. She was killing it. Like if she had done half the promotion of this for Breathe In, Breathe Out. Can you imagine? I mean,
I could only imagine.
She was everywhere for this thing. I mean, and those were great interviews. I also noted, I went back and watched some of the interviews from that time, and I noted how they kind of made Hilary, they had her looking so classy, I feel like. And I wonder if that, just in the way she was dressed and her hair and everything. And I know part of that's Hilary, but I wonder if that too, had something to do with how they wanted her maybe to look more prestigious and like an author,
Play into the author role.
Yeah. I could be wrong and just making a weird observation. But yeah, she looked so classy in all these interviews. And I think she was like 23. The first book came out, she had just gotten married to Mike. So she might have even been, no, she had just turned 23. And then the second book, she was pregnant with Luca. That's when she went on Ellen and revealed that she was having a boy.
Yes, you're right. Yeah.
And then the third book, which took a while to get back around. I remember the first two came out like exactly a year apart. And then the third one didn't come out, like I said, till the spring of 2013. And it was also shorter. Like the other two books were
it
like
was
thicker.
a lot shorter.
I think she only did one interview, which was Ellen. And then she had one book signing, it seems like. Whereas the first book, she had like tons of book signings, several places in the country. And then the second book, I think she did New York and LA for a book signing. And then, the third book, it was just kind of like, well, we're done. I don't know what that was about. I know that Hilary, we've seen in interviews since where she's been like, that was the hardest thing I've ever done. So she might have kind of been like over it.
I think she was.
Yeah. Another thing that I'm disappointed in is that we never got like a movie or a TV series from this.
Yes.
Because she talked about that in her interviews, and I could see it.
Yeah, I remember a lot of people were really excited about it turning into a movie, and she would always talk about it too, and how excited she was, and how could she could see like certain people in the movie. But she said she wouldn't act in it herself, which was kind of interesting.
And I remember one interview, though, so they did ask her, like, who she'd want to play. And she said she didn't want to play Clea. She said she was too old for that. But there was a character in the second book, like, that if she was in it, that she was interested in. I don't remember who that character was.
I can't remember either.
I don't remember how the series ended.
No.
And it's not to say that they weren't memorable, because that first book, I think the first one, it's stuck with me. And probably because I wrote that paper and did that presentation.
Right.
But that first one, I remember it so well. And as far as the book tours, I think it was the first episode of the podcast where I talked about how my parents did not take me so the closest book tour stop was going to be 6 hours away.
Oh.
Couldn't drive myself. But my best friend happened to live in the city, St. Louis, Missouri, and she went for me and got me a signed copy. So I do have a signed copy.
Oh, that's amazing.
Of ELIXIR, yeah. So shout out to my friend Emmy for doing that. But I remember the book tours being really successful, and it was an exciting time, even though it wasn't a project that I think caught wide attention. I mean, it was a bestseller, a New York Times bestseller. So yeah, in some ways it did. But, I don't think people always think about Hilary Duff being an author, but it was a good time.
Do you remember, I think she did like an interview in Paris?
Oh, where she shaded Lindsay Lohan?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like a radio interview. And she
I do remember that.
Yeah, shaded Lindsay.
I don't remember what she said, but she was just like, what a bitch. And I was like, yes, Hilary. So we will end here with Quizzy McGuire, and my question for you, and I hope I'm getting this information right, but because in Beauty and the Briefcase, we saw one of Hilary's Cosmo covers, I want to know if you know how many U.S. Cosmopolitan covers has Hilary been on, and bonus for if you know the years.
Is it just U.S.?
Yeah. So my question is like, how many U.S. ones? Because I know she's been on several like international. Let me give you multiple choice.
Okay. Yeah.
The multiple choice. So we'll say A4, B6, C8.
6.
No, it is actually A4. 4. According to my count and research. If I'm wrong, someone please come for me. But yes, and the years, we have 2006, 2008, 2015, and 2017. But one, she's got on kind of this like plaid look for the 2006 one. 2008, that's the one that we see in Beauty and the Briefcase, and it's kind of this purple, like satin looking dress. 2015, that was the Breathe In, Breathe Out year. And I mean, she had on like the short jeans and like the leather black jacket.
One of my favorites.
Never looked better. Oh, yes. She also had on the short blue jean shorts and like a blue top that was knotted at the bottom. But yeah. Okay, I'm ready for your question.
So, like going to her movies, back in 2011, she was set to be in this movie where she played a dancer in New York, where she also meets this blind man. Oh. Do you remember what the name of it is?
She was going to play a dancer in New York and a blind man.
They end up getting together.
Oh, I have no idea.
No?
No.
It's Donald Kimsey.
Donald Kimsey, No. So the Google results are from Hilary News. In her new movie, Donald Kimsky,
yeah.
Hilary Duff will be playing a dancer who meets a blind man in New York City. No.
She talked about it when she was doing press for Bloodworth.
Oh, okay.
She was pretty excited for it too, but it never ended up getting lifted off the ground for some reason.
So many projects have gotten scrapped.
Many projects she could have done.
Yeah.
We could go on and on, talk all day.
I know. There could be a whole episode about that, honestly. This has been great, and it's been fun to have such a hardcore fan on, and enjoyed talking Beauty and the Briefcase. Great to talk ELIXIR. Is there anything else you want to say about like why you are such a big Hilary fan and why you love her, why we all love her so much?
I don't know. I think she's really relatable to people.
Right.
And she's never like we have changed and we've like grown up with her, right?
Mm-hmm.
But she's never really changed like what she stands for.
Yeah.
She's just like a great all-around entertainer. She's like an amazing mom, as we all know.
Mm-hmm.
There's just so much to say about her, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. All right. Well, Josh, this has been so much fun. Thanks for being on Duff Enough.
Thanks so much for having me.
And do you want to plug Hilary News? I mean, as if listeners need to know, but before we go, feel free.
All right. So I'm sure everyone knows who's listening. Follow Hilary News for all the latest updates on Hilary.
Yeah, and I'll have the link for that in the description. So, all right, Josh, thanks so much.
Thanks so much.
And that's all for this episode of Duff Enough. Thanks again for listening. I hope you'll subscribe and stick around for more because this podcast is what dreams are made of. You can follow along on social media at Duff Enough Pod and check the description for my socials as well as show guests. And until next time, bye Team Duff.